Hi, my friends. Today I want to present you a new story. Enjoy watching it.
It was the kind of scorching Los Angeles afternoon where the pavement shimmered in the heat, and even the air felt thick with exhaustion. I'd been working at the luxury car dealership for about a month, a newbie among seasoned salesmen who wore their confidence like tailored suits. As the youngest on the team, I spent most of my days fetching coffee or observing from the sidelines. But that afternoon, something unexpected happened. The glass doors of the dealership slid open, and in walked an elderly man. His appearance caught my eye immediately, not because he seemed out of place, but because he looked like someone who had weathered a storm. His clothes were worn and faded, the edges of his coat frayed, and his shoes looked like they had been dragged through miles of hardship. He had a canvas bag slung over his shoulder, and though he moved slowly, there was a sense of purpose in his stride. The other salesmen noticed him too. I caught them exchanging smirks, and I could hear the whispers from Grant, one of the senior guys, as he nudged me. "Adrian, you see that old man? What's he doing here, huh? Maybe he thinks we've got a sale on used cars or something." They chuckled, clearly entertained by the thought of someone like him browsing our showroom of polished luxury vehicles. But I couldn't laugh. There was something about the man that felt different, an air of quiet dignity, perhaps, or the way his eyes lingered on the cars like he wasn't just admiring them, but remembering something. I knew I couldn't stand there and let them mock him. Ignoring the jokes, I approached him as he stood beside the sleek black car that caught his eye. "Good afternoon, sir," I said, keeping my voice respectful. "Are you looking for something specific today?" He turned to me, and for the first time, I noticed the deep lines etched into his weathered face. His pale blue eyes met mine, a hint of hesitation flickering in them. "This one," he said quietly, nodding toward the car. It's a beautiful machine." "The engine, what's the size on it?" I blinked, caught off guard by the question. Most people in his situation wouldn't even bother asking about the specs. I glanced over at Grant, who was shaking his head, amusement dancing in his eyes. I felt a surge of irritation, but kept my focus on the elderly man. "It's a V8 engine," I replied, trying to gauge his reaction. 400 horsepower, smooth handling. It's built for the kind of ride that, well, it's made to last. The man smiled, but there was something sad about it. He reached out, gently brushing his hand along the sleek surface of the car. "It's perfect," he murmured, almost to himself. Before I could say anything more, Grant strolled over, his tone condescending as always. "This one's already reserved, old-timer. You sure you're in the right place? We've got some cheaper models out back, maybe something a little more in your price range." I winced, but the old man didn't seem fazed. He just nodded and began to step back. "I understand," he said softly, his voice barely above a whisper. As he turned to leave, something in me snapped. It didn't feel right to let him walk out like that, dismissed as if he didn't belong. I called after him, "Wait, sir, please." He stopped and turned, a look of surprise crossing his face. "I'd be happy to show you around," I said, glancing at Grant, who rolled his eyes and walked away. "Even if you're just browsing." The old man hesitated, then nodded. "I appreciate that, young man," he said. "Name's Tristan. Tristan Barrington. I'm 91 years old." "Nice to meet you, Mr. Barrington," I said, offering my hand. He shook it firmly, his grip stronger than I expected. As I walked him over to the car he'd been eyeing, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to his story, more than the shabby clothes and tired eyes. I didn't know it then, but that small act of kindness was about to change both of our lives in ways neither of us could have imagined. The following afternoon, I arrived at the dealership early. The moment I stepped inside, I spotted Tristan Barrington again, lingering near the same black luxury car. He wore the same worn coat, his hands resting on the cane he leaned on. He seemed deep in thought, almost as if he were waiting for something. I approached him quietly. "Mr. Barrington," I called out softly, careful not to startle him. He looked up, his pale blue eyes brightening with recognition. "Ah, Adrian," he said, his voice warm. "Good to see you again, son." I smiled and walked closer, nodding toward the car, still thinking about this one. He gave a slow nod and let out a sigh. It's more than just a car to me, you know. It's a promise. His gaze drifted back to the vehicle, and I could see the weight of the world in his eyes. A promise? I asked, curious. Something about the way he said it made me realize this was no ordinary window shopper. What do you mean? For a moment, he seemed to consider his words carefully. Then, with a tired breath, he spoke. I've been saving for years, Adrian, collecting recyclables, odd jobs here and there. Anything to make this dream come true. My wife, Donna, she's always loved this car. Every year, she pointed out, say how one day we take a long drive along the coast, just the two of us. But time has a funny way of slipping through your fingers. He paused, and I noticed his hands trembling slightly as they gripped his cane. Donna's sick now, he continued, his voice thick with emotion. Doctors say she doesn't have much time left. All I wanted was to give her one last adventure. Just 1 week in the car she's always dreamed of. But I'm still short on what I need to buy it. I thought maybe I could work something out with the dealership. I felt a lump forming in my throat as I listened. His words painted a picture of a love that had endured so much. The kind of love that makes you do anything for someone, no matter the cost. It was clear that this wasn't just about a car for him. It was about fulfilling a final wish for the woman he loved more than life itself. How much are you short? I asked softly, my heart racing in my chest. He hesitated, shifting his weight before answering, about $5,000. I'd scraped together everything I could, but it's not enough. $5,000. It was a huge amount, especially for someone who had clearly worked so hard for every dollar. I stood there, my mind racing. I knew I had that exact amount saved up, money I'd been putting aside for a down payment on my own home. But suddenly, the house didn't feel so important. I can help you, I blurted out, before I could stop myself. Tristan's eyes widened in disbelief. You, help me, he asked, shaking his head. No, son, that's too much. You don't know me. I couldn't ask you for that. You didn't ask, I replied, smiling slightly. I'm offering. And it's not a loan. Consider it a gift. From one man to another who understands what it means to love someone that much. For a moment, Tristan stood there stunned. His lips trembled as he tried to speak, but no words came out. Then, after what felt like an eternity, he reached out and clasped my hand with surprising strength. Thank you, he whispered, his voice breaking. I don't know how to repay you. I shook my head. You don't have to. Just take Donna on that drive, Mr. Barrington. That's all the thanks I need. Tears welled up in his eyes, and for the first time, I truly understood what it meant to change someone's life with a single act of kindness. The next morning, just as I was finishing my coffee in the dealership's break room, I heard the soft chime of the front door bell. When I stepped out onto the showroom floor, I barely recognized the man standing near the entrance. Gone was the shabby old coat. In its place, a tailored navy blue suit hugged his frame. The cane, which had seemed like an extension of his body just the day before, was now clutched loosely in his left hand, more for comfort than necessity. It was Tristan Barrington. But this time, there was a new energy about him, one that caught everyone's attention. Adrian, he called out, his face breaking into a wide smile the moment he saw me. I hurried over, still trying to process the transformation in front of me. Mr. Barrington, you clean up well, I joked, though I couldn't help but feel a strange sense of pride. He looked every bit the part of a man about to make a grand purchase, and I noticed how the other staff, who had been quick to judge him the day before, were suddenly very interested. Well, I thought I'd make an impression today, he said with a chuckle. After all, it's not every day a man buys the car of his dreams. I smiled, watching as he approached the same sleek black sedan he had been eyeing the entire week. His hand brushed over the polished surface, but this time there was no hesitation in his step. Tristan had come prepared. Shall we make it official then? I asked, already knowing the answer. He nodded eagerly. Let's do it. As we walked toward my desk to complete the paperwork, the other salespeople began to notice. A few of them exchanged glances, some of confusion, others of disbelief. I could almost hear their thoughts. Was this the same man they had dismissed so quickly? But Tristan paid no mind to them. His focus was entirely on the task at hand. Once we sat down, I went over the details with him. Everything looks good. Are you sure this is the one? Tristan's eyes gleamed with excitement. This is the one, he said firmly. Donna and I will drive along the coast, just like we always dreamed. The mention of his wife reminded me of our conversation from the day before, and it hit me again just how important this moment was for him. He wasn't just buying a car. He was buying a memory, a final gift for the love of his life. We finished signing the papers, and as I handed him the keys, Tristan's hand trembled slightly, though his expression remained steady. "You're a good man, Adrian," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "You've given us something priceless." Before I could respond, one of the senior salesmen, George, approached, his eyes narrowing as he surveyed the scene. Well, Mr. Barrington," George said, his voice oily. "I didn't realize you were making such a significant purchase. If I had known," Tristan turned to him with a calm smile. "If you had known, perhaps you would have treated me with more respect the first time around." George's face reddened slightly, but Tristan didn't wait for a response. Instead, he looked back at me and said, "Adrian, I'll be back tomorrow with Donna. We'll take our first drive together." I nodded, grateful that I had been the one to help him, not just because of the sale, but because of what it meant to him and his wife. As Tristan walked out of the dealership, keys in hand and a spring in his step, I couldn't help but think about how much a person's appearance or circumstance could deceive. Beneath Tristan's worn exterior had been a man of quiet dignity, of love and dedication. And now, with a little help, he had his dream within reach. Tomorrow would be a day of transformation for him in more ways than one. The following afternoon, Tristan arrived at the dealership again, just as he had promised. But this time, he wasn't alone. Donna, frail but beaming with joy, sat beside him in the passenger seat of the gleaming black sedan. I watched from the showroom as he carefully helped her out, her hand resting lightly on his arm. She was dressed in a simple floral dress, and her silver hair glistened in the sunlight, matching the shine of the car. There was an air of serenity about her, as if this moment was a gift she had been waiting for. I hurried outside to greet them. "Good afternoon, Mr. and Mrs. Barrington. It's great to see you both." Donna smiled warmly, her voice soft but full of life. "Thank you, Adrian. Tristan's told me all about you. He said you're the reason we're here today." I couldn't help but feel a tinge of embarrassment, but I smiled. "I'm just glad I could help." Tristan, looking as proud as ever, opened the passenger door for his wife. "We're about to take that drive I promised you, Donna," he said, his voice brimming with excitement. She leaned into him, her eyes shining with gratitude. "You've always kept your promises, Tristan. I never doubted you." The moment felt intimate, as if I were witnessing something far more profound than just a simple drive. I stepped back to give them space, watching as Tristan helped Donna into the car. Her movements were slow and deliberate, but there was no mistaking the happiness on her face. Once they were both seated, Tristan turned to me with a wide grin. "We're off to see the ocean, Adrian," he said, his hand resting on the steering wheel, a slight tremble in his voice. "We've been talking about this trip for years." I nodded, knowing how much this meant to him. "Enjoy every moment," I replied, unable to hide my smile. With a final wave, Tristan started the engine, and the sleek black sedan rolled slowly out of the dealership. As they pulled away, I watched them head toward the coast, the afternoon sun casting a golden glow over the car. The dealership was quieter than usual the next week. It felt as though Tristan and Donna had left an invisible imprint on the place, their story lingering in the air like a memory that refused to fade. I hadn't heard from them since that afternoon, but I thought about them often. One afternoon, just as I was finishing up some paperwork, I saw Tristan walking through the doors. But this time, something was different. His shoulders were slumped, his eyes red-rimmed, and he seemed smaller, older. There was no sign of the vibrant man I had come to know, no trace of the spark that once animated him. I rushed to meet him. "Mr. Barrington," I said softly, my concern immediate. "Is everything all right?" He paused, taking a deep breath before speaking, his voice strained. "Donna passed away the day after our drive. His voice trembled and tears flowed from his eyes. The words hit me like a punch to the chest. I had known this moment would come, but I hadn't expected it to be so soon. "I'm so sorry," I managed, my voice barely above a whisper. Tristan nodded, his gaze distant. It was peaceful, Adrian. We drove along the coast, just like we always dreamed. She smiled the entire time, right up until the end. His voice cracked, and he looked away for a moment, struggling to maintain his composure. I reached out and gently placed a hand on his shoulder. "I'm glad she had that moment with you," I said. "I'm glad you gave her that." For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The weight of loss hung between us, but there was also a quiet sense of peace. Finally, Tristan cleared his throat and reached into his coat pocket, pulling out a set of car keys. "That's why I'm here," he said, handing them to me. "This car, it's not mine anymore." I frowned in confusion. "What do you mean?" He smiled, though it was tinged with sadness. "I want you to have it, Adrian. You made it possible for Donna and me to have that final week together. I want this car to go to you. It's the least I can do to thank you for your kindness." I stared at the keys, overwhelmed. "Tristan, I can't accept this. It's too much." But he shook his head, his expression firm. "You have no idea what you've given me, son. This car isn't just a vehicle. It was the last gift I could give my wife. And now, it's my gift to you." I opened my mouth to protest, but the look in his eyes silenced me. This was his final act of love, a gesture of gratitude, and I knew better than to refuse it. "Thank you, Mr. Barrington," I said quietly, taking the keys. "I'll take good care of it." "I know you will," he replied, his voice soft but resolute. And with that, he turned and walked out of the dealership, leaving me standing there with the keys in my hand.